Okay, our group talked about deep ecology and deep dignity, and in addition some concepts which I'm not terribly familiar with my background, and Ted can probably explain that a lot better than I can. But I think dignity came into play in our group in that we are from very different areas and ways of thinking, and I didn't want to be dismissive as having my particular view, so I wanted to be curious and all of us to have some dignity in our discussion and expressing our ideas. So we'll hear from different perspectives on this topic, and the result was a set of questions which will be fodder for future thinking about this topic. So let Ted explain that.
So this discussion became a combination of a focus on deep ecology and on what I'm introducing as deep evolution, or on a different worldview. And in my opinion, or my understanding, is that our crisis, our lack of dignity for nature, comes from a fundamental mechanical worldview. And that what's evolving in the scientific community is the understanding that consciousness is the primary mover, that consciousness and that the world itself is made of information, that evolution happens on what are called holonic principles, that a holon is a complex adaptive system, is a complex system of multiple things that has a unity. An atom is a holon consisting of subatomic particles that grows, that evolves in the universe to become a molecule. Those evolve to become single-cell organisms. Each one of these is a holon made of many things with an individual identity. Over time, single-cell organisms evolve to become animals, complex multi-celled organisms. We're a colony of 1 trillion or more single-celled organisms that have found a unity. And we're now in an extraordinary point in time, moving from this age into a unity. In the 1980s, Peter Russell, the philosopher, introduced the concept of a global brain, saying that our technology systems are the equivalent of a global nervous system that's evolving. At this point in time, that's pretty much built out. Now the information is happening. And a revolution is going on now in cryptocurrencies and technology, creating what is called an immutable memory system, new currencies, new communications vehicles. So what's happening now is the beginning of an actual memory for this global brain. It's an extraordinary point in time. A memory is actually forming for humanity. And to take a step back from this, if we look at consciousness as the fundamental element, if we look at the fact that the problem that we've had, so many of the problems are that we view the universe as dead, as a mechanical, as a rock. If we change our view of the universe to that, instead of being human-centric to cosmocentric, to realize that each one of us is not an individual who is thrown into the universe under original sin, but is actually the emergence, the witness of the cosmos. That changes the entire relationship between us and dignity. To understand that we are the divine witness of the cosmos, and to build on there.
So our first question is, how can we develop technology while overcoming alienation from nature? And we're just accustomed to thinking of technology as something that happens automatically. It has its own kind of logic of evolution. And our challenge now is seeing how destructive it can be. What can we do to develop appropriate technologies that serve, that are sustainable.
The second question we came up with was, how can we bring deliberateness to our evolution? And so the current example we have of that is epigenetics, which is essentially a new way of looking at how our actual behavior and interaction has a one-generation effect on the beings that we produce. So that for the first time we're looking at the fact that our classical understanding of genetics is no longer an adequate framework or model for how we can influence the evolution of our species. And the question is, we're just beginning to look at the question of how can we bring a deliberateness to that that's going to serve our basic needs and the survival of the species.
So our group pretty much just kept generating more questions. I think you can see why. And what we ended up as we were kind of looking at the intersection of this idea of deep evolution and deep ecology, and is one more human-centered, that we are an actor in the universe, and what is the effect we have on the universe, and how can we secure it so that we can survive as we know it, as distinct from perhaps the idea that it's all one system in which we are one infinitesimally small random component that may have its time come and go, like all other living things. And with the intersection of technology developing faster than we can really get a grip on, the question ultimately arose about what it might mean to have the idea of being post-human. And is there greater dignity in trying to hold on to what it means to be human as we now conceive of it to be human, as we know of ourselves with our consciousness? Or is it the case that consciousness is evolving, like everything else has evolved, and there may be greater dignity in recognizing humbly that it's not all anthropocentric. It's not about us and survival of us as we know it. We haven't done so well. Maybe as humans, that is. So there may be a lot of potential for humans as we know us, or maybe it's the case that there might be greater dignity in facing up to some evolution that might have nothing to do with humanity. Does anyone want to add
Those are our questions for the world.
Yeah, those were the questions basically, and also if we spoke about being metamorphosized, exactly what will we metamorphosize into? Will we be robots? Okay. The question I'd also ask, if we're going to be like robots, I mean, if robots are going to take over, robotics, they do the repetitive tasks. So far we have artificial intelligence, but can they make accurate decisions? So the project that we worked on has, again, it has more questions than anything else.
Thank you.